TELUS, a telecommunications company, has an advertisement out right now, and it has a very interesting tagline which says, "The future is friendly." Have you seen that? The future is friendly. Well, I wonder, do you agree with that? Do you agree and believe that the future is friendly? I'm sure there are many people that would say, yes, I do believe that the future is friendly. But I think there's probably a number of people, maybe a growing number of people that would say, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if the future is friendly. I would say maybe the future is uncertain. I mean, right now we're in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is worldwide, and there's a lot of uncertainty out there. There's a sense that I'm not sure about the future, maybe even being pessimistic about the future. Like, when is this COVID-19 pandemic going to end? When are we going to go back to our lives being normal again, or so-called normal? What about the economy? What about our jobs? What about all these things? So there's probably a number of people out there who would say, well, I'm not sure about the future. You know, I was reading or heard someone speak recently, and they said that in Western society right now, there's a great deal of disillusionment, discouragement, despair even, because of what's going on in our countries and the countries around the world. And I asked, why is that? In recent years, there has been an increase in the number of suicides that has been taking place. And perhaps you know, there's especially been an increase in suicides among young people. So why is that? Why are these things happening? Why is this taking place in our society? I came across a study just this week that took place in Canada, and it said this, that the majority of young people, millennials, believe that their lives won't be better off than their parents. Did you hear that? This generation of young people is the first generation in history that said, no, we're not going to be better off than our parents' lives. Why? Why is this taking place? There's a fellow by the name of Robert Putnam. Some of you may know his name, and he is a well-known social scientist at Harvard University. And he said this is obviously a complex issue about why this is so, but he said one of the main reasons he feels why there is a sense of discouragement, disappointment, and disillusionment in our society right now is because we have a crisis of hopelessness. We actually have a crisis of hopelessness. People are lacking hope. And hope, as you know, is so significant for us to live our lives the way we were called and created to live our lives. People need hope. There's a neuroscientist by the name of Tali Sharot, and she argues hope is so essential to our survival that it is hardwired into our brains. It can be the difference between living a healthier life versus one trapped by despair. And there's a doctor by the name of Shane Lopez, the psychologist. He was a psychologist who was regarded as the world's leading researcher in hope. And he said hope is the leading indicator of success in relationships, academics, career, and business, as well as of a healthier, happy life. Isn't that interesting? He said that hope is the leading indicator of success in relationships, academics, career, business, and in life. Well, I don't know about you, but that all tells me that hope is pretty important. So what is hope? What is this thing called hope? I thought we are in such a need of hope in our society that I am planning we are going to be doing a sermon series in July and August on the subject of hope. Guess what the title is called? Hope Rises. My son designed this. Hope Rises. And we're going to be looking at what hope is. Today I'm going to introduce the subject, and in a few minutes we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Brianna. She's a counselor, a therapist, and she's going to be sharing with us about some very interesting aspects about hope. But for a few minutes I want to introduce what hope is. I mean, what is hope? I mean, is hope wishful thinking? Is hope just optimism? I mean, sometimes I think we think hope is wishful thinking. Like, it's raining right now, but I hope it's going to be sunny this weekend. Or I hope we're going to find a vaccine for the coronavirus soon. Or I hope this sermon is not too long today. That's not hope. That's wishful thinking. Just kidding. But I do want to look at this whole subject of what hope. And what I'd like to do in a bit of time, a few minutes we have today, is look at there are three main biblical words for hope. I am grateful for the Bible Project. They have a great video on hope. I encourage you to watch it, and I learned a lot of this from that video. So three words, three biblical words for hope. There are two. The first two are Hebrew words. And the first Hebrew word is the word yakal. You can see that on the screen, yakal. Why don't you say that with me? Yakal. Come on, Joe, I know you're watching. Say it. Yakal. That's right. And this biblical word, Hebrew word, yakal, it means hope. It simply means to wait for. I mean, Samuel right now is watching me with his arms crossed, and he's waiting. He's waiting. And it is a word that simply, yakal means hope, but it means to wait for. So when you read Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, and you read the story about Noah and the ark, and God sent a flood over the earth, we find and we read in those chapters that Noah waited for God. We read that Noah and his family, yakal, they waited for the waters to recede. So this first Hebrew word is what? Is yakal, and it simply means to wait. The second Hebrew word, meaning for hope in the Old Testament, is the word kavah. See that? Kavah. And this Hebrew word kavah also means to wait, but it also has some richer nuances because kavah also has a sense of waiting, hoping, but it has a sense of expectation or anticipation, that sense of waiting, hoping. It's a type of hope that kids have on Christmas morning when they're waiting for mom and dad to get up so they can open their presents. It's kind of that kavah, that anticipation, that expectation that's waiting. And so we have these two Hebrew words meaning hope, yakal and kavah. Interesting, this word, second word, kavah, it means to wait in expectation, anticipation, but it also means, kavah also has a root meaning rope or cord. And you're thinking, what does rope or cord have anything to do with waiting? Well, it's interesting, but you think of a rope, and a rope is something you hold on to. A rope is something that is strong, that is sturdy, that you have security in. So this sense of kavah, meaning a rope, is something you hold on for security. So that begins to make sense. So you could say, sorry for the pun, but hope is a rope. Hope is a rope. Hope is that sense you hold on to something. You grab hold of something. And as you grab hold of that, you're waiting in anticipation, expectation that it is going to be strong and secure, and you will find your hope. And so obvious that when the Old Testament writers are using yakal or kavah, the hope is always found in God. So they hold on to God. They wait for God. They anticipate. There's an expectation in what God is going to do. So hope, biblical hope, especially in at least in the Old Testament, it's not optimism, and it's not wishful thinking, because optimism is very different. But biblical hope is this sense of anticipation and expectation in the character of God. Because sometimes often it doesn't depend on your circumstances, but it depends on God. So, interesting. Old Testament, there's a sense of waiting. And so we find in a sense of holding on. So Jeremiah, the prophet, he writes to the people in very discouraging times while they were in captivity in a foreign land. And he said this in Jeremiah 29, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope, kavah, and a future." Plans to give you hope. So hold on to me, anticipate, have a sense of expectation in me. And it's why the prophet Isaiah writes in Isaiah 40:31. Some of you know this verse, but I have memorized it, where the writer is giving hope to these people who desperately need it. And he says, those who kavah, those who hope in the Lord, those who wait in the Lord, those who hold on to the Lord will what? They'll renew their strength. They will soar like wings on an eagle. They will run and not grow weary. They will not walk and not be faint. And so in Hebrew in the Old Testament, the words mean to wait for, anticipation, expectation. It means we hold on to the person, the character of God, that this God is a good God, and he is good all the time. That is his nature. And so in the Old Testament, we find we have hope in God. Did you hear that? Our hope is to be exclusively in God. Our hope is not in our pensions. Our hope is not in our relationships, as good as they are, in our marriage or with our children. Our hope is not in our health. Our hope is not in finding a vaccine for the coronavirus. Our ultimate hope is exclusively in God and in God alone. And then when we come, so in the Old Testament, we have those two words, yakal and kavah. But in the New Testament, we have the Greek word elpis. Elpis. You see that word on the screen. And it also means hope, expectation, confident, trust, anticipation. But what you find in the New Testament over and over again, this word is used like 53 times in the New Testament. It's always often to do with our hope is in Jesus Christ. Our hope is in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is what our hope for the Christians is exclusively in. Our hope is in because of the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Guess what? We have hope. We have hope that God has set us free from the slavery to sin. We have hope that through the death and resurrection of Jesus that we have been liberated. We have hope through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, we have new life in him, that we have eternal life, that he gives us this hope to share with the world. And so in the New Testament, it's exclusive. LPs, this expectation, this hope, this confidence is found in Jesus. And so the Apostle Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3, the resurrection of Jesus offers a living hope. Isn't that good? It's a living hope. It's not a dead hope. Hope is in a person. It's a living hope that people can be reborn into new and different kinds of human beings. A great picture, isn't it? Hope is different than just, totally different than what the world offers. It's this unshakable confidence, expectation, holding on to the person of Jesus Christ, to God, looking back at what he did for us at the cross, his resurrection. And that hope also gives us hope, anticipation for the future. It's an unshakable hope. Just think of those two words for a minute. Unshakable hope. You know, and the writer of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 19 says this, we have this hope as an anchor for our soul, firm and secure. We have this hope in Jesus Christ as an anchor for our soul, firm and secure. That's a great word, that image, anchor. In the Old Testament, I gave you the image of what? A rope, holding on to it. But here there's the image of hope as an anchor. An anchor is something that allows that boat to be firm, secure, unshakable. You know, a boat without an anchor has a mind of its own, right? On the ocean or even on a lake, a boat that no anchor, it can go adrift. It can go into crash into another boat or into a channel with other boats. It could crash into rocks. But a boat with an anchor is secure. And that's the picture of Jesus Christ, that his hope that he offers us is like an anchor for our souls. Yes, we live in times where we do not know what's going to happen. We live in times where there is uncertainty for sure. But we're not the only generation. Many generations have been like that. But our hope is in God. Our hope is in Jesus Christ. And so I'm looking forward in this series to discover how this living hope in God affects and lives in and lives out in our lives, and how we can be people of hope, and how we can be people who offer hope to this world also. Christian hope looks back to the risen Jesus Christ in order to look forward. And so we wait with anticipation and expectation. Please stay with us as we do this interview with Brianna as she talks about some very interesting aspects of hope.